Welcome in to a special edition of our Creator Biz learning series, online tutorials. Today we're going to be putting together a special tutorial for the CS Beast with a cool project that we're doing with Freakonomics, Rogue Economist's Hidden Side to Everything. It's a book we're reading in class, and we're doing a jigsaw project with this, and the whole purpose of this tutorial is to show how you will put together the website or the web page part of this tutorial. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to create a folder similar to the one that I have showing up here on my desktop. You'll notice that I named this Freakonomics Chapter 1. And in place of spaces, I've used dashes. So in HTML, if you use spaces in your file naming conventions, HTML will automatically replace those spaces with a special character. And it actually makes the file path a little bit longer and harder to find. So to get around that, we're going to use dashes. So go ahead and do the same thing. You're going to create this folder in your U drive. Now, if you are the person working on this part of your project, you're going to need to collect all of the asset files that go along with this page. So you're going to need to ask your teammates to either share this with you or send these files with you so that you can complete this project. In my folder, you're going to see 4 different files. The first one that's the actual HTML page that you are going to create. So don't worry about this one. You're not going to have it. I'm going to show you what this looks like later on. This is a completed example that I'm going to show you so that you can see what your end product is going to look like. Stay tuned for that in just a moment. The second file listed there is the MP3 file. That is the podcast. That is what's going to go in. That's the file that we're going to link into your web page. And then below that is a Word document. And this is a Word document that I put together to show or represent the questions and analysis to those questions that we've given you to work on. So these are the 12 to 14 questions that your group has been assigned with each of your chapters. And then last, this is an infographic image. I've taken this from another project that we've done previously, and I'm just using this for a placeholder purpose to show you what it's going to look like at the end of our tutorial. Okay, so you need to create this folder, no spaces, save it in your U drive, and then place all the assets associated with your web page in here. If you don't do this, then later on we're going to have problems, and I'll have to track you down and get those files from you so we can make your web page function correctly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that out, and then I'm going to pull up my Dreamweaver. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and open Dreamweaver from your Applications button. I have 2 files up already working. You can see over here on the left-hand side, I have my Files panel up as well. We're not going to do anything with this just yet, but I just wanted to show you that this is what your file panel may look like. Okay, and I'll take you through how to create a new page and all that in just a second. But first, I want to show you what this is going to look like. So I'm going to pull up Chrome, and so this is what your page will end up looking like at the end of our tutorial. It's not styled, and nothing looks super great. There's a few things that I'm going to have you style, like centering some of this stuff in here. But for the most part, you're not going to do much. You're just going to put in content. You're not going to make it look pretty. That's because when you save everything and send it to me, I'm going to put it into one of our biz pages. And that's what this is going to look like. So I'm just going to click over there and then tab over. And so what you're going to see is you'll see our menu items and stuff up in here when they're in here in our sidebar. But essentially, this is the end product. This is what you're going to look. This is what it's going to look like when I post it onto our biz site. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and tab over to Dreamweaver again, and we're going to go ahead and get started with our first piece. So I'm going to go ahead and create. I'm going to go File, New, and we're going to create a new document. So you're going to create New HTML and click Create. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this file. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to save it in that folder that I just created, that I was just talking about just a minute ago. And I'm going to go ahead and save this as Freakonomics. And if you're name it whatever chapter you're doing. So you might call it chapter 1, and then study guide. And then to help us out with, because we have multiple groups we have 2 groups doing each chapter. I'm going to have you, if you are group 1 through 6, you're going to do this as study guide A. And if you are group 7 through 12, you're going to do this as study guide B, so I can separate the 2 out later on. Okay? So I'm going to just go ahead and do this as Freakonomics Chapter 1 study guide. Notice that I don't have any spaces in there, and it's all dashes. So you're going to go ahead and click Save, and then we're going to get started with the rest of our stuff. Where it says title up in here, and we're going to do this in code. So if you aren't seeing what I'm seeing, you need to go to View and switch to Code right there. Okay, if you're in View Mode Design or something like that, just select Code, and we're going to do this all in code. You're going to learn some very basic HTML stuff right here. So right in between this title tag where it says Untitled Document, we're going to change that to read Freakonomics. And I'm going to do a colon here, and then this is a rogue. Capitalize everything here that needs to be capitalized. A rogue, economists, gotta go back to a rogue economist explores the hidden side of everything. So, rogue economist explores the hidden side. Sorry, my typing skills need a little work here. Of everything. And then I'm going to do a dash in here. And dashes, you could just do like one of these guys, but if you want a true dash, you need to type in the ampersand symbol. So Shift 7 there. And you're going to get a list of different symbols that we can use in HTML. And what you're going to do is you're going to type in ND, and it should come right up in your code hinting, and then just hit the enter return key. And then after that, I'm going to name the chapter that we're doing. So this is chapter 1, and then go back real quick, and I'm just double checking, make sure it's all right. School teachers and sumo wrestlers. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that to save time for the tutorial and paste that in there. So that's what you're going to do for your title. You're obviously going to put the correct chapter in there that you're doing with your group. Okay, so now we're going to get into the content part of our page. So I've got my cursor right here, placed right after the body tag. And the body tag is what gets displayed on a web page. So everything inside of the body tag is where we want to be. So you can see I'm on line 8 in my code right here, and my cursor is right after the body opening tag. And on line 9, that's the body closing tag. And you can see that it's the closing tag because there's a / right before body. So I'm just going to hit the enter return key a couple of times just so I have some space in between there with which to work. So I'm going to move my cursor up to line 9, and that's where I'm going to begin inserting some content. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in a heading, and this is going to be a top level heading of our page. So I'm going to type in what's called an H1 tag. So this stands for heading 1 tag. And it's going to be the largest font size on our page. So I'm pretty much just going to repeat what I had already put in the title. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that and copy the first part. So Freakonomics, a rogue economist. So this title, by the way, if you're wondering why do we have to do this twice, this title is what appears in, if I pull up my Google Chrome piece. So right here where you see the little tab, that's where that title shows up in right there. So that's why we have both those spots. So I'm just going to go ahead and Control C or Command C, and then Control V, Command V, that H1 tag. And then on line 10 here, and the next line down, I'm going to hit Enter Return, and then I'm going to type in the H2. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and do the Chapter 1, School Teachers and Sumo Wrestlers. That's like a subheading of the top level heading. So I'm just going to hit Control C or Command C, and then right after I type in my H2, right in between the opening and closing of that, I'm going to hit Control V or Command V. Type that in. Okay? And then on line 11, I'm going to type in a paragraph tag, and so I'm going to type a left caret and then P, right caret, and my cursor's right in the middle, and this is where I'm going to type in the names of my group. So I'm just going to say first and last name, and so however many people you have in your group. And for time's sake, I'm just going to copy and paste like about 5 of these little placeholders in here to kind of show that. Okay, take out the last comma. I'm going to go ahead and quickly save real quick and just show you how you're going to preview how this is working. If you'd like to see what this looks like, say like in a browser. So down here in the right hand corner of Dreamweaver, there's a little icon that looks like a little phone, and if you hover over the little button, it'll say real-time preview. So click on that, and I'm selecting Google Chrome, and pop that over, and you'll see that close that first one out that I've already got it there. So you see my heading 1 is there. There's my heading 2, and then there's the list of first name. Oh, looks like I forgot the F when I copied and pasted, but not a big deal. Okay, so I'm gonna tab real quickly, Control tab or Command tab back over, and I'm gonna look at our example here, this completed example, to make sure that I'm on top of where I need to be. We'll get into this top section here in just a sec, but so I have the H1 tag there, and I have the heading 2 tag there. Oh, I did forget one thing in that line, so I'll go back and fix that in just a second. And then I have an intro paragraph that will follow all the list of names in your group. So I'm going to click on here real quick and fix or add something that I needed to add. I want to put like, created by or something like that with all of the names there, but I want to make sure created by is highlighted differently than the rest. So I'm going to put that in bold. But when you do this in HTML, it's not like you just highlight text and then make it bold like you would in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Instead, I have to wrap this in what's called a strong tag. So I'm going to type a left caret and type in strong and right caret, and that'll complete my strong tag there. And then I'm just going to type in created by in between and then a colon, and then that should take care of that. Okay. And then at the end of that line, I'm going to go ahead and put the fix this real quick because I messed up on my copy paste job. Okay, so I'm going to place my cursor at the end of that line with all of the names and hit the enter return key. And then I'm going to make a new paragraph tag, so left caret, P, right caret. And then I'm going to go ahead and open up my Word document that I have saved. So here's the deal. You should generate this type of document for yourself. So if you need to collect information from the rest of your group members to get this, that's what I would recommend. What you're going to see in here is you're going to see what's called the lorem ipsum dolor text. And this is just basically nonsense text that works as filler text. So when we don't actually have the real text to put in there, this works as kind of like a filler so we can see how layout's going to work and all that kind of stuff. So I've got this broken down. I have an intro paragraph that I want to copy and paste. So I'm going to grab that, select that, and hit Control C or Command C, and then Command Tab or Control Tab back over to Dreamweaver. And then with my cursor in between that new paragraph tag that we just created, I'm going to hit Control V or Command V. Okay. And then following that, just kind of click over here. I'm just showing this to show you where we're going. We're going to go ahead and put in our podcast audio feed. And to do that, we're going to add what's called a div container to house that little player, and it's going to allow us later on to center that little player in our design, so it looks nice. So I'm just going to tab over real quick. Oops, I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. And tab over to no, hang on, don't need to tab over. Just click the tab up here. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to type in the div tag, and we're going to apply a class to this div tag, but we haven't made the class yet, so that's okay. But we're going to make it here in just a minute. So we're going to type in div space and then class, and then hit the enter return key when you see the code hint come up. And we're just going to name this audio and right caret there, and then I'm going to hit the enter with my cursor in between those two div tags there. I'm going to hit the enter return key so I have some space with which to put stuff in. If you look at my example here, I have a heading 1 right in there, and then I also have a heading 2 following that as well. So the heading 1 is going to be like a great title, and then the H2 is going to be the names of the people that made the podcast. Okay, so I'm going to come over here real quick and then type in H1, and then type in really great title for our awesome podcast. Okay, and I'm going to hit the enter return key, place my cursor right at the end of that H1, and hit the enter return key, and then H2, and then I'm going to put in, let's see, did I do something? Hosted by, that's what I did. Okay, and I'm typing hosted by, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put my name in here and Mr. Rogan's name just to illustrate that that's where you're going to be doing that. And I'm also going to put in an ampersand between ours, but again, I'm going to use the symbol ampersand, not just the ampersand that's in your keyboard. So it should look like that. And then Mike Rogan. And then I'm going to hit the enter return key after that. And this is where we're going to enter, where we're going to key in your podcast, the player for the podcast. So this is actually really simple. Used to not be as simple, but HTML5 gives us the ability to do this. So I'm going to type in left caret, and we're going to do audio. Type in audio, space, controls, and then select controls, equals, and then type in quotation marks, like that. Okay, and then type in controls. Let me double check, make sure I did that correctly. Yep, okay. All right, so it should say audio controls equals controls, basically. And then hit the space bar, and then we're going to type in SRSC for source. And then when you see that little window pop up, hit the enter return key, so your browse window comes up. Hit the enter return key one more time, and then select the MP3 audio file that goes with that. So I'm going to go ahead and click open. And then from there, we're going to right caret, and that should close us out for our control piece. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command S, and then Command Tab or Control Tab, Control S for you Windows users as well. And then I'm going to tab over and select the Chrome so I can see what this looks like. There's our audio player. Everything right now is just kind of left-hand side, not styled or anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually work on that just a little bit. So I'm going to tab over to Dreamweaver, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do in the completed example. So we named that div class audio, and we have some styling that we need to put in there. And then we also need to style an H2 tag to go along with that. We want a little bit of padding. We want a little bit of space in between the actual player and then the bottom H2. So I'm going to tab over. We're going to do max width, margin, padding up and down, or top and bottom, and then align content. So right where my title is, up in the head tag up here, at the very top, there's a closing title tag. I'm going to place my cursor at the end of that and hit the enter return key. And then type in a left caret. And from here, this is going to be this is going to add our styling. This is going to give us a little bit of styling for what you're working on. When we put it in, it'll add other styling as well from the biz page. So this is going to be style, hit enter return, and then type, and then text CSS, and then right caret. And when you get that closing style tag there, hit the enter return key a couple times, and then I'm going to tab that back there so they're back on the same line. And with my cursor on line 7, I'm going to type in a period and type in audio. So when you create a class, it always starts with a period, okay? And I can pretty much name whatever class I want as it is, but I can't have spaces in my class name or some other characters as well. So you just got to keep it simple. So spacebar and hit what's called your left curly brace. So it's right around the bracket, right next to the P key on your keyboard. So shift and then curly brace. Okay, and then when that opens up, opening and closing curly brace, hit the enter return key so you have a line down below to work with. We want this div container to have a max width, so we're going to type in max and then select width from your list. Okay, and this max width is going to be 900 pixels, and then type in a semicolon, and then hit the enter return key from there. And we're going to do a little bit of a margin adjustment here, so we're going to type in margin, and it's going to be 0 on the top and the bottom, but then auto for left and right. So we're using shorthand here. If we were to write this out longhand, it would be margin 0, like that. So it goes in clockwise fashion. So the first number, the first 0 number is the top. The second number, or the second value, is right. The third is bottom, and then the last is left. So it goes like, think of it as like a box. They call this the CSS box model. And all those numbers basically represent a side of a box. If you have numbers that are repeated, like we have 2 zeros and 2 autos, you can shorten that down to just the 2, and your browser will know that those values are repeated for top and bottom, 0, left and right, and auto. Okay? And then I'm going to hit the enter return key and just double check over here where I'm at. I want some padding on the top and bottom of our player so that it's spaced out nicely and it's nice and visual. So I'm going to type in padding, and we're going to do, did I say 40 pixels for the, back up, 40 pixels, and then 0 left and right, because we don't really need to mess with that. I'm just going to double check my values here. Okay. And then after I type in the semicolon, I hit the enter return key. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and try to center this center all the content in this div tag. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type in align content center, and then justify content center, and then last but not least, text align center. So that should center whatever I put in that div class, that div called audio. After that closing div tag, after the closing curly brace, sorry, not closing div tag, after that closing curly brace down there, I'm going to hit the enter return key a couple times, space it out, and then next I'm going to type in audio again, but this time I'm going to add the H2 tag right after it. Don't forget the period. It should be green if you've done it correctly. Okay, hit the space bar, open up a curly brace, and hit the enter return key. The only thing I'm doing here is adding a little bit of padding on the bottom, and I need to type in padding bottom, and I believe I'm going to add 20 pixels. Let me double check my value there. There we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and preview one more time. So I'm going to Control Tab or Command Tab over to Chrome, and then just see where I'm at. So you should see that it's centered, and you have that H2, and then you have your control piece right there in the middle. So I'm going to tab back over to Dreamweaver, and then we're going to go back into our body. We're going to add the infographic, but we need to wrap the infographic in a div container as well. So after that last closing div tag, after div class audio, I'm on line 31. I'm going to hit the enter return key, and then from there I'm going to type in a left caret, div, and then class, and then this one's going to be called infographic, and I'm going to style that here in just a minute. And then right caret, which will close that out, and hit the enter return key so that we have some space to work with. I'm going to go ahead and do two things with this infographic. One is I'm going to make it a link so that if somebody clicks on it, they can click on the full-size image in a separate tab. And it's just like an extra feature that I think might be nice for people to use. So I'm going to type in a left caret and type in the A tag. So A elements are link elements, and hit the space bar. And to set the file path for this, I type in HRE for href and hit the enter return key. You're going to get a browse window again, so hit the enter return key one more time, and that should bring up your selection window to select the infographic. So I'm going to select the infographic.jpg and click open. And then from there I'm going to hit the right caret, and that's going to close that A tag out. And then to place the image as an image inside this document, I need to place the image or link the image up. So right now I just have a link to this, but I want to link the image to that link. So here we go. Left caret, img for image, space, src for source, and hit the enter return key. And then you're going to hit the browse key again, so you can just browse for the file. And we're selecting the same exact file here. I'm going to click open. And then hit the space bar after that, and you want to make sure you type in an alt key, which allows for screen readers to read that image for people who have disabilities. So we're just going to go ahead and type in Freakonomics. Spelled that wrong. Freakonomics. There we go. Infographic. I'm not normally this bad, I promise. Okay, and then we need to close that tag out, so / and then right caret. And if the image tags are a self-closing tag, so that's why you see that / in the same tag right there. Okay. If we save this real quick and then tab over to our Chrome, you're going to see that it's on the left-hand side. And for those of you inserting the real infographic, it may load as something really large. So what we're going to do is we're going to tab over, and I'm going to add some styling to this class infographic, so that way we can fix some of those things. So right after, up here above where we have our style type, that little section there, so right after audio H2 and that closing curly brace, hit the enter return key. And here we're going to type in period, infographic, and since you've already used it somewhere else, you'll notice that it pops up for me in the code hint. So hit the enter return key, and then spacebar, left curly brace, open that up, and then hit the enter return key so that you have some space to work with. Okay, so for this, I'm just going to tab over real quick and check out what I got. I've got a max width, I've got some margin, I got some padding on there, and I've got an overflow, and then I've got infographic IMG that I need to style as well. I'm going to talk about why this is really cool and how important this part is. So I'm going to tab back over. So again, we want our max width of our thing to be 600 pixels wide, and that's just the container that we're working with on our CSB site. And then we want to center this image or this div within that section, so that's why we're doing margin 0 on top and bottom and auto left and right, same as we did with the audio div tag that we created earlier. And then enter return key. We're going to put some padding on the bottom so that we have some space between the graphic and then the text that follows it. So that's going to be padding bottom 20 pixels. And then last but not least, if for some reason our image is bigger than our container, we're going to tell it to overflow, and we're going to hide it. We're going to hide whatever over, like if it goes over the amount of space that we've given it, it's going to hide whatever that extra is. Okay? All right. So the next thing though is what this is going to do is this is going to limit the size of the container that the image goes in, but it's not going to resize the image appropriately. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in info graphic and then IMG. And what we're saying here is that this image is a child of the parent element of infographic. So infographic is the class name. So this image is a child of that div class. So what it's going to do is if we type in width and we say 100%, what this is going to say to the image is that this image needs to be 100% of the max width of 600 pixels. So it should automatically resize that image for us to fit within that container. And then hit the enter return key, and then for height, you're just going to say auto. And that should take care of everything for us right there. Okay? All right, so you're going to hit Control S real quick, and let's go ahead and Control Tab or Command Tab over to our Chrome. We should see it center there, and hopefully you see your image sized correctly in that container. Okay. Next, we have just a little bit more to go. If you look at our example, following our infographic, we have the series of questions and answers that are going to go at the bottom. So we're just going to do this really simply. We're going to have one line here. You're going to see that you have a question, and that question is going to be wrapped in a strong tag, so it's going to bold it. and then the answer is just going to be in a paragraph tag, and it's not going to be bold. So I already have some of this. I have this set up in my Word document this way. So if you look over here, you can see that I have the questions in bold and I have the answers just plain. And I'm not going to go through and do 14 examples of this. So all you're going to do is essentially follow the first few, and then you should be good to go from there. So I'm going to tab real quickly back over to Dreamweaver and locate my empty line down here underneath infographic, under the div class infographic that I created. I'm going to hit the left caret P, right caret, and then tab over to my Word document, grab that line of question there, and hit Command C or Control C, and then Control Tab over, and then Control V or Command V. Oops, I'm going to Control Z that real quick. I forgot something. I need to put in that strong tag, so I'm going to hit left caret and then type in strong. Right caret, close that out, and then now I'm going to hit Control V or Command V, so that goes into being a bold line. And then after that paragraph tag, enter return, and then left caret P, right caret P, and then it's not going to get the bold treatment, so I'm going to tab over, grab my paragraph for that question, hit Command C, and then Command Tab over, and then Control V or Command V, that text in there. So you'll do this for each single question that you have for the rest of your document. So if I were to show you how this looks, kind of pushed out for like a few more questions, I'm just going to go ahead and grab those two lines that I just wrote in, the lorem with the bold and then the non-bold line. So I'm just going to grab both those, hit Control C or Command C. You can follow this or you don't have to, it's up to you. But I'm just going to kind of push this out so you can see what it might look like with 5 paragraphs or 4 questions. You're going to do that for all 14 questions. Then I'm going to hit Control S or Command S, and then check out what I got. There we go. So boom, there's my questions right there. And so eventually when we put this into our CSB page, what you're going to see is, just Control Tab over there, you're going to see it just like this, okay? And it'll fit nicely in there like we have done that. Okay, so one last step before we sign off. To get this to turn this in, to get this to me and Mr. Rogan, what you need to do is zip your folder and send it as an email to both of us, okay? So here you go. Here's my folder right here, Freakonomics. And if you have a Windows machine, it's going to be a slightly different menu item, but basically it's the same process. If you right-click on the folder, okay, I have an option that says Compress Freakonomics Chapter 1. And you should have something similar too. It might actually say Send To or something like that. That's the one that you're looking for. So I'm going to hit Compress that file, and what it's going to do is it's going to create a zipped file which will allow me to email the entire folder, and rather than as separating it out via email. Okay, so there you have it. That's it for this special tutorial and to go along with our Freakonomics Jigsaw project.